Boy, do I sure love making controversial videos. Today I've got a list of 6 Disneyland / California adventure rides that I don't think are worth the standby wait time. Now, don't get me wrong, these aren't by any means bad rides. I think all Disneyland rides are great, as much as I like to poke at and make fun of certain rides. But I think all these rides are cool and good and fun, but they're just not worth how long you're going to end up standing in line if you choose the standby instead of the fast pass. And these are in order from the one that I think is the least not most worth your time to the one that I think is most not worth your standby queue time. So let's get into it. Kicking it off with number 1, or maybe number 6, the ride that is least most not worth your time, Radiator Springs Racers in California Adventure. Now this one might come off as a surprise right off the bat because this ride is incredible. It is one of the most immersive and fun Disney rides I can think of. Cars Land in general is just mind-blowing how cool that place is. But this queue, at least the standby queue, has not really shrank too much since the ride first opened. I mean, obviously opening week and month and year, you frequently saw wait times over 200 minutes. But even now, I'll often go to the park and still see 100 to 120 minute standby wait times for that ride, which is insane. You should not spend 2 hours standing in line for one ride. I just think that should never be what you do. But this is an amazing ride, and it has a good fast pass. Snag up that fast pass first thing in the morning. And then of course there's the single rider line as well, if that's something that you're interested in. I just don't recommend standing in the standby for Radiator Springs on a busy day. Just if you see it under 30 minutes, under 45 minutes, be my guest. But over that, maybe not. For number 2, we're hopping on over to Disneyland for another ride that you might be a little surprised by. It's Star Tours. Now, Star Tours is amazing, okay? It's a cool ride, especially with all the updates they've given it in the past few years. Has one of my favorite queues in the whole park, so I can't even say that standing inside that queue is awful. But the line is frequently ridiculously long. Now, I like to surf the Disneyland app on my phone, even when I'm, 1,000 miles from the park, just to look at wait times. And I'm often surprised how long the wait time is for Star Tours. Lots of times it's longer than Space Mountain and Indiana Jones and Splash Mountain. And I just don't know why. I think maybe it's a pretty slow loading process or something. But again, that's a great fun ride. I recommend the fast pass every time. If the standby again is short, obviously hop on it. But for 100 minutes, 60 minutes, Star Tours is just a simulator. And it's a good simulator, but maybe not worth your time. And now for number 3, we are headed back over to California Adventures. The ride is Soarin' Around the World. And it's actually still soaring over California right now at the time I'm recording. Disney has extended that event to the end of August, I've heard, which is amazing. A couple weeks back, I was hoping in a video that Disney would catch on to how much people love soaring over California and maybe incorporate it seasonally or give you a choice or something. Anyways, I think soaring over California while it's temporarily here, totally worth your time. Stand in line to visit that because maybe it's the last time you're ever going to. But soaring around the world is just not the same. As, again, I discussed a couple weeks ago, I think it is a much worse version of the ride, and yet the queue is still frequently very long. So it's fun if you are in California Adventures and you can snag a fast pass, definitely ride it. It's a blast. But if you're going to be standing in line for an hour for soaring around the world, if it's your thing, again, go ahead. These are all just my opinions, but I wouldn't do it. I don't think it's a great use of your time when there's so much else going on to do in the park. All right, we're into the final 3. I hope I haven't stepped on your toes too much yet, but these final 3 are rides that I really just don't recommend standing in a busy day standby line for. And this next one, number 4, is I make fun of this ride every time. I think my channel is just, you know, making fun of Autopia at this point. And I promise I have fun on the, you know, here is proof, video evidence that I have fun on Autopia.
Cruising in my slick red hot rod. Oh, better not hit Aurora. Man, this is so futuristic. Look what I can do. I don't know how to drive. This is not the ideal ride to be on when you really gotta pee. It's a bit bumpy, and there's no rest stops to pull off to.
It's a blast. You know, I could get into my issues with it, but it's just not a huge standout ride in my opinion, and sometimes that standby line can get over an hour, which for Autopia just isn't worth it. The queue is hot, you're out there in the sun, on the concrete, smell of gasoline. I don't know. I just don't think that that is worth your time to stand in that line. Again, if it's the end of the day and most fast passes around the park have ran out, but you can snag a fast pass for Autopia, go ahead, hop on it. I find myself usually riding that ride after dark because it's my last fast pass and I'm like, all right, let me hop on Autopia, have a bit of a good time. But to stand in line for it, it's got a slow boarding process, and again, I said the queue isn't that great, and it is a ride that's very kid friendly, so if you have very young ones, feel free to stand on it, but I don't think they're gonna enjoy standing in that line for an hour either. So be careful with your time. Autopia, you know I have issues with it, but do what you want. I don't know, do what you want or something. We're in the final two, and if you know a lot about Disneyland, I'm willing to bet you guessed this one might be on the list. Not because it's a bad ride, but because the queue is pretty notoriously nasty. It's Peter Pan's Flight in Fantasyland. Most Fantasyland rides have a pretty decent queue. I mean, Snow White is frequently under 10, Mr. Toad and Pinocchio between 10 and up to 40 even, but Peter Pan's Fight. Peter Pan's Fight. All right. Peter Pan's Flight is frequently over an hour to 2 hours I've seen it at. There's no queue really. It's just switchbacks back and forth out into the depths of Fantasyland. And it's a very, very short ride. Granted, it's an amazing ride. It's the only dark ride where the rail is above you and you're flying over. It's a beautiful ride. People say it's the least scary of the Fantasyland dark rides, making it the most kid-friendly, which I don't disagree with. But no kid wants to stand on a concrete switchback for an hour or more for, 2-3 minutes of ride time. It's a short ride, and it's a great ride. It's incredible. So if you catch that ride with the queue, I'd say under 30 minutes, get on it. Like seriously, anytime I see Peter Pan with a reasonable queue, whatever I plan to do, I'll say no, I'm gonna hop on Peter Pan while I can. Peter Pan's Fight is just not worth your time on a normal busy day though. Number 1, the ride I would least recommend you stand in the standby queue for on a normal busy Disney day. And I want to apologize first that my whole brand has become bashing Tomorrowland. I promise I still enjoy hanging out in Tomorrowland, and any of these rides I would get on and have a good time. But that being said, number 1, Finding Nemo's Submarine Voyage. You can't be too surprised. You know how I feel about that ride, and I don't know, maybe you're one of the ones who loves that ride, and if that's the case, good on you. Like honestly, good on you. Because it's not the end of the world. Again, as I said, I would hop on this ride. I'm like pointing at the map I drew last week as if this is, I don't know what I'm doing. Finding Nemo though, not my favorite, and that queue can get nasty. Again, it's not a very engaging queue. I mean, you got some shade over you on this one, but it's just switchbacks on top of pavement without much to look at. Again, frequently getting over an hour to an hour and a half. I've seen it up to 2 hours just to sit in a cramped submarine for 10 minutes or whatever. I don't get it. I think that ride needs so much help, but I still love it. I think it's the least worth the wait though. Grab a fast pass if you want to check it out. Nothing wrong with that. Fast passes are always the way to go. always. I mean, fast passes are amazing, but Finding Nemo's Submarine Voyage coming in my opinion, as the least worth your time to stand in that standby queue. So there you go, that's my list of 6 rides in Disneyland and California Adventure that I just don't think are worth that standby wait. The poll question this week though, which ride in Disneyland or California Adventure would you stand in line for? Let's say a 2-hour queue. It's a busy day, your favorite ride has a 2-hour queue. Would you stand in it, and what ride is that gonna be? Answer the poll right up here, I believe. This is a new space, so maybe it's up, I believe it's right up here. Answer that poll. Which ride would you wait 2 hours for? Answer that, let me know, and thank you so much for watching. I had that live stream last night. I hope it went well. I'm recording this on Tuesday, so it hasn't actually happened yet, but hopefully you enjoyed that if you had a chance to check it out for a bit. If you did, tell me below what you would like to see in the future as far as doing a live stream or something like that again, and just tell me how it went. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week with a brand new Disneylander, but until then, what's he gonna say today to end the video? Bye.